Hi everyone, how you doing today? We're doing a late afternoon live stream. It's 4:41 p.m. on a Friday. You're probably headed right into your weekend. It's July 15th. The price of Bitcoin is $20,885. 84 now. It just moved while I was reading. The price of Ethereum was $1,250, and my favorite microcap coin, Giddy, is at 5.969 cents. Everything is up a little bit. Bitcoin is up 1.8%, Ethereum is up 5.2%, and Giddy is up 2.38%. That's nice to see. A little bit of green, not much, but I'll take it. I'm not going to get married to it, though. I'm not going to count on it sticking around forever. We're going to talk about that in our live stream right now. Let's do the same thing we did yesterday, huh? A little game. Crayon, the AI artist. Let's punch in a fun phrase and see what it comes up with. Dr. Strange Bitcoin Hardliner Wizard. Let's see what it produces. If you have something you would like me to punch in here, let me know down in the comments. And we'll bring it up and put in a fun Bitcoin-themed AI art prompt. I want to hear it, folks. We had a great one yesterday. Moving on. 2 Bitcoin price predictions, same outcome. 10K BTC is coming. This from Cointelegraph. While a classic technical indicator could be hinting at BTC price falling below 13,000 as well. Okay, so they talk about a couple different polls that were done here. A survey of 2,200 people conducted on China-based social media platform Weibo found that 8% would buy Bitcoin when its price hit 18,000, according to Wu Blockchain, while 26 of the respondents prefer to wait until BTC reaches 15,000, but the majority anticipated the price to fall even further, with 40% saying they would buy BTC at $10,000. Okay, the methods here are questionable to me. To say that, oh, well, they did a survey, therefore these 2,200 people that we surveyed said they would buy at this price, therefore it's headed south. I don't think that's how it really works. I would look at broader macroeconomic issues, and frankly, the crowd doesn't get to decide the macroeconomic issues, not like this anyway, not consciously. They decide it with their individual actions. They decide it with how much they're going to spend and where they're going to spend it and when they're going to spend it. They decide in how and when and where they're going to pay their employees and what they're going to upgrade on and what they're going to hold off on spending. They cite 2 different surveys, and I just think this is flawed methodology. That said, the methodology may be questionable, but I don't think that the conclusion is necessarily incorrect. Could we go further? Yeah, absolutely. Another macroeconomic shock could send us further down. Is the contagion in the cryptocurrency world contained? Well, yes, but we've thought that before. I think it's contained. It might not be contained. What would happen if tomorrow BlockFi decided to release some really bad news, right? Celsius is down. Voyager is down. What if BlockFi comes out and says that they are bankrupt, or says that they're being acquired in a fire sale, right? That was a rumor that was going around for a while. And while Zach Prince denied the allegations, what he really was denying was the specific number being peddled. It said they were going to be purchased for something like $25 million, which was 99% down from their multi-billion-dollar valuation just a year earlier. Okay, so is the contagion contained? Maybe. I wouldn't bet on it. I'm not betting on it. Is Bitcoin and the market generally going to go further down? I see no reason that it could not. We've seen it go down much further than most people thought it would. It was steady at the 40s, then it was steady at the 30s. Now it's been moving sideways at the 20s. We're breaking records here, people. It, quote unquote, shouldn't be this low by many metrics and models. Yet here we are, right? If the models are broken, why should we rely on those to continue to inform where the price is going to go? It could go further south. And I, for one, am putting aside cash in order to buy. Right? I am buying Bitcoin periodically. That has never changed. But I am also putting aside some cash to buy in at a potentially lower price. Now, I might not get that lower price. It might start to move north, and I might get skittish and just buy again at a higher price, but I'm willing to take that risk. Again, I have certain price targets that I'm trying to reach. I want my stack to be a certain size, and if the price goes down to a certain level, I can hit my target and then ride that wave back up whenever it happens. Speaking of models, here's Plan B at 100 trillion USD on Twitter, the famous proponent of the 2FA, not 2FA, 2FA is two-factor authentication. This was the STF, stock to flow model. Apologies, too many acronyms. Well, the stock to flow model is basically broken, but what Plan B is saying here is, I think, valid. June 2022 was the first Bitcoin monthly close below the 200-week moving average, 200 WMA, ever to happen, right? This is a standard measurement used in many different asset classes. This is the first time ever that Bitcoin has moved below and closed the month below the 200-week moving average. This is what I mean by, according to many models, Bitcoin shouldn't be this low. This has never happened before. Now we're seeing a nice bounce back from the lowest levels. Would not surprise me if Bitcoin closes July above the 200-week moving average, 22K, again. All right, so let's look at the chart. We've seen it get down to the 200-week moving average right at that level back in 2015 and in end of 2018, beginning of 2019. This is the first time we are clearly ending the month below that 200-week moving average line. Historically unprecedented, but a pretty good indicator that we are at historic low prices given the trends, and if you want to buy, now is not a bad time to buy. It's maybe not the absolute bottom. We could go further south, but it's not a bad time to buy. And a few weeks ago, I did buy. I'd been putting aside cash. Bitcoin started moving around. It was when it went down to 17.5K, and then it quickly jumped back up, and it was at like 21 and change, and I got scared, and I YOLO'd in. The cash that I had been putting aside, I bought. That was obviously not the bottom, but I'm not upset about that purchase. Here's some interesting news. Vladimir Putin, everybody's favorite psychopath dictator. Vladimir Putin bans digital payments in Russia. He signed a bill that adds to a previous prohibition against cryptocurrency payments in the country. So you're not even allowed to use cryptocurrency at all if you're in Russia. So there was some hope when sanctions were coming against Russia that, hey, maybe Russia will adopt Bitcoin as a form of payment if they're being sanctioned by SWIFT, the international banking system. Well, that didn't happen, and now it looks like it's definitely not going to happen. Notably, Bitcoin Magazine is saying, yeah, good luck with that, Putin. How are you going to enforce this? How are you going to stop people from using Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? There's really no way to do that. They can threaten people. They can throw people in jail after they've been found guilty, but they have no mechanism for preventing people from doing this whatsoever. It's the strength of the network, right? Anybody with an internet connection can do this. Niraj K. Agrawal, if you're not familiar with Niraj, you should. He's comms at Coin Center. Coin Center is a group doing advocacy for Bitcoin in Washington, D.C. and other places. It's the cryptocurrency policy think tank. Niraj is a really fun one to follow on Twitter. He says, will the people who are, quote, concerned Putin might embrace Bitcoin to evade sanctions add this information to their worldview? Unlikely. Right? The detractors will say that Bitcoin will be used by rogue states and dictators. And Niraj is saying, like, not a chance. Eric Wall responded to this. If you're not familiar with Eric, he is also somebody worth following. I believe he was I'm going to get it wrong. I think he's a core developer on Bitcoin, but I could be totally wrong about that. All I know is that he's definitely a big personality in the space, and he has a very informed opinion on the matters going on here, right? He never fails to register a detailed opinion that seems to pull on rich information. I should actually find out what his resume is. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But Eric responded here and said, old news, this was already confirmed in a leaked interview between me and myself. Then retweeting his own old tweet. But isn't a risk of increased Bitcoin regulation if it gets used by subversive purposes? Won't there be a lashback? Quote, Russia is not actually going to adopt Bitcoin. That would be opening Pandora's box of freedom. It's just a horny Bitcoiner frat boy dream, Wall explained to himself. He's right. Countries that are welcoming Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are countries that are doing so because the existing regime, the existing power structures are not working for them. So democratizing, opening up cryptocurrency systems and rolling out the red carpet for those is a net positive for a small country, a small power structure that is not well served by the international power structures in place. Somebody like Russia or the United States or the EU, they are not going to be welcome to this. It fundamentally disenfranchises them. It takes power from them and gives to people broadly. They're not going to be welcoming to that. El Salvador has been. Small African nations might be. We should expect to see that continue. It will be the small nations that adopt first because they have nothing to lose. The existing power structures don't work well for them. You should expect to see very powerful structures like the United States, like Russia, like the EU fighting this. I would like to think that there will be legislators in the United States who genuinely believe in freedom for the people, and they will fight for this, but they've got an uphill battle. It's not going to be easy for them. Moving on, speaking of small countries and adopting Bitcoin, just in from Watcher Guru, Paraguay's Senate approved a bill that would allow Bitcoin miners to use the country's excess energy at lower prices. So it is going to be these smaller nations. Paraguay is not a country that anybody is scared of, that they have to reckon with. Well, what is Paraguay going to think? They have independence by virtue of being relatively powerless in a lot of ways. This is an alternate path. It's why El Salvador has kind of bucked the IMF, right? What has the IMF really done for El Salvador? Not that much. The International Monetary Fund, I won't go into it now, but there's a book called The Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Now, you may take this as hyperbole or crazy conspiracy theories, but the book is penned by a man who said, I worked for a group whose job it was to basically financially enslave small nations. And if they didn't cooperate, we would literally assassinate their leaders. It is a very interesting book, to me, entirely plausible. When somebody dismisses this stuff outright and says, we wouldn't do that, these institutions wouldn't do that, my answer is, what do you think the CIA does? Why do you think they exist? We have all of these intelligence services. We have a long record of admitted involvement in other nations' activities. You're telling me we just stopped doing that? We don't do that anymore? The CIA exists just to defend freedom? It's an institution built for lying and meddling. That's what it does. So, anyway, that's a tangent from what I meant to say. Paraguay's Senate approves a bill that would allow Bitcoin miners to use the country's excess energy at lower prices. Energy use is also an incredibly important topic that we will continue to harp on this channel. Here's another one. I love Bitcoin because it represents freedom for the people, freedom of the people, said a Mexican senator, right? There are going to be representatives who genuinely want to serve people, and we should see openness in these smaller countries that have less to lose because the existing power structures don't work well for them. Oh, Celsius, the sad story of Celsius. Celsius acknowledges the $1.2 billion hole in their balance sheet. Now, that number was previously reported to be higher. That's because Sam Bankman-Fried was looking at them and looking at a possible acquisition. But Celsius has been paying off loans left and right. Now, they have paid off all of these loans, and what's left? They still have a $1.2 billion hole in their balance sheet. The people who are going to suffer here are almost certainly going to be the depositors, people like you and me. Like I've said before, I still had a little bit of Bitcoin on Celsius Network. I got the vast majority of it off, but I transferred some USD coin onto Celsius to pay off my loan and withdraw, and I transferred more than I really needed to. I still have $2,400 on Celsius Network. And ironically, they still send me my weekly update of the interest that I'm earning, the yield that I'm getting on my USDC deposits. Every Monday morning, I get that email. Congratulations, Austin. Here's your yield. Yeah, right. I also noted yesterday, let me pull it up, twitter.com. I noticed yesterday something pretty funny. I was searching for something, and I saw this. An ad for Celsius Network. As you can see, I was searching for plug-in hybrid trucks. BTW, there are no plug-in hybrid trucks. That's what I was trying to find. They don't exist. But underneath that search, Celsius, unbank yourself and earn up to 10.5% interest on crypto. $50 sign-up bonus. So this is an affiliate link. It's not Celsius proper, but somebody is still paying for this, or they already paid a long time ago, because they halted all withdrawals mid-June, a month ago. somebody is still paying for ads to try to get people to sign up. What even happens if you try to sign up at this point? Can you? Is it possible? Frankly, I hope not. But I thought that was very funny when I saw it yesterday. Okay, Celsius, moving on. If you're not following Clown World today, that's at CWT_news on Twitter, I would say this is worth following. From CNBC, here's a heck of a headline. Millennials are to blame for sky-high inflation, strategist says. Guys, I don't know what this so-called strategist said, what they actually said, what their actual words were, or what the context was. But let's just look at this headline for a second, okay? CNBC, these major news outlets, they're competing with the rest of the internet. In fact, they're competing with everything else, not just the other news outlets. They're competing with Netflix. They're competing with Facebook. They're just begging you to look at their screen, because the way they make money is with advertising dollars, and they only get paid when your eyes are looking at their screen. So they are forced to use the same tactics that every clickbaiter out there has to use. We have reached a point in our media ecosystem where it doesn't matter who you are or how respectable you are. If your business model is the same as everybody else's, i.e. ad-based, and you're just trying to suck people in, then you will resort to whatever means necessary to get them to do that, including horrible, disingenuous clickbait titles like this. I think strategists do say a lot of dumb stuff. I don't think anybody in their sound mind can actually believe that millennials are to blame for sky-high inflation. That's a clickbait title meant to suck you in, make you angry, make you comment, which I guess I'm doing right now, right? We live in a perverse media ecosystem where bad behavior is rewarded. They will make money from this article. How do we solve that? How do we fix that? Well, pay for your media. That's one. That's a different business model that produces different results and different user behavior. If you subscribe to a media outlet, I'm not recommending the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. Those have been ideologically hijacked. But if you subscribe to a media outlet, your behavior, your relationship with them will be very different. This was made very crystal clear to me in Ryan Holiday's book, Trust Me, I'm Lying, Confessions of a Media Manipulator. That's 2 books that I've mentioned today about confessions of let's pull them up. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Interesting book, not new. This is an older one, published years ago. And it's a good book. I'm going to recommend it. I liked this book, and I thought that it was informative. That and Ryan Holiday's book, Confessions of a Media Manipulator. This was Ryan Holiday's first book. He's written several at this point, but all of his subsequent books have basically been about stoicism, which I like. I'm into that, but this was fascinating, right? This was not learn self-control. This was, let me show you how we manipulated people into doing exactly what we wanted them to and how we used the media to do it. This should be required reading for any communication student at any university, because this is the environment that we live in right now. Everyone's manipulating everybody else because they get rewarded for it. It's ugly, it's sad, I don't like it, it's the reality. And if we want this to change, then business models fundamentally need to change. There needs to be institutions that build up trust, that have a very clear way they frame stories, and then get subscriptions where their content is subscribed ahead of time and their readers are not just being drawn in at random. It's the people who know that they trust this institution and they're going to come here every day to get their information about the world. That's how things, I think, used to work. The internet has deconstructed that. There were decisions made very early on that the internet was going to largely be run by ads, paid for by ads, and that has had a deleterious effect across the board. It's totally changed consumer behavior. It's totally changed publisher behavior. We need a massive change here. Maybe someday I'll try to tackle that problem, but not this day, not today. Ooh, it's Friday at 5 p.m. and I'm only halfway through this. I better hurry up, friends. Just in, the biggest Bitcoin whale address bought at 1,480 BTC this month. It holds 132,882 Bitcoin, worth about 2.7 billion. It's interesting, these addresses that have so much money. Chain analysis can tell you exactly what they've done, when they received, when they sent, how much, all of that. They can't necessarily tell you who owns them. And there are several interesting addresses out there who we don't really know who they are. If you watch Benjamin Cohen, he's a technical analyst on YouTube. He does a lot of videos. He does a series called Whale Games, and he analyzes these high net worth addresses. One of them he calls Whale Number 3. It's the third highest third highest Bitcoin address. And it's interesting to watch their behavior. A lot of these groups are very good. They have so much money, obviously. They must be very good at this. They must be investing in Intel. And they provide signal. They buy at historically pretty good times. So if Whale Number 3 is buying right now, it's usually a pretty good time to buy. That's Benjamin Cohen. His series is called Whale Games. It's good stuff. I do recommend that. Just in, Bitcoin mining rig prices are the cheapest of almost 2 years. This from CoinDesk. So if you want to get into Bitcoin mining and you have capital put away, now is not a bad time. The real question is, do you have access to cheap electricity? You need some kind of competitive advantage. You can do this, right? You can do this without that competitive advantage, but the odds of you getting wiped out when costs go up or the price goes down, there's just so much volatility here that a competitive advantage of some kind really helps, right? Can you use the excess heat from your Bitcoin miners to, I don't know, heat a greenhouse where you're growing crops, where you're going to sell those crops for a profit, right? Is there a way you can turn the externalities here into a profit? I don't know. I'm throwing out ideas. Point is, mining rig prices are the cheapest in almost 2 years. If you want to get into mining, maybe it's not a bad time to do it. From Carl B. Menger, certainly a Bitcoin hardliner. Bitcoin does not equal crypto. This is really, this articulates something that has stood out to me as I've been looking at the space for a long time. Bitcoin was attractive to me initially because it literally accomplished something that many mathematicians and experts in various fields thought was impossible. Bitcoin, we solved the Byzantine generals problem and created a global decentralized currency. Crypto, coin has dog. This is real, guys. That meme articulates a lot of what we experience in this space. Bitcoin synthesized absolute breakthroughs from economics, psychology, cryptography, and numerous other fields into this amazing framework that has proved to be so incredibly robust. Crypto, broadly, could mean just about anything that even vaguely touches on any of these other related fields. You could copy your code from one project to another, put a dog name on it, and suddenly it'll shoot up in a bear market. I have never owned any dog coins, and I don't recommend anyone ever buy any dog coins. Those are not even pretending to have utility. What they're doing is relying on the greater fool theory. Yes, the coin is garbage, but hey, some idiot down the road might buy it from you for more than you paid for it. That's not a good gamble. Bitcoin is a breakthrough. Try to find actual breakthroughs, right? And Bitcoin is one that people are still waking up to. You're still early, is what I'm saying. From Michael Saylor, crypto is for mercenaries, Bitcoin is for missionaries. Have you ever heard this? The difference between missionaries and mercenaries? I'm very familiar with this phrase. Mercenaries are out for profit, they're out to kill, they're out for blood. Missionaries are out to convert, to teach, to help. I would like for this to be true, but the behavior of many in the space, many Bitcoin hardliners, demonstrates otherwise, right? You don't have to search very far. Go ahead and click the Bitcoin hashtag, and you can find lots of posts that sure don't sound like missionary talk. And please, take it from me, I've been an actual missionary. For 2 years of my life, I did nothing else but preach the gospel to people. The good word of God, right? I wanted people to discover this thing that I thought was so beautiful and meaningful to me, and I wanted to share it selflessly with them. I spent 2 years doing that. I'm pretty experienced with missionary work. And I'm telling you, we need more missionaries in the Bitcoin space. We don't need mercenaries. Leave that to other things. Leave that to, I don't know, altcoins. Go ahead and let them be the toxic altcoiners. Is that a thing? Yeah, it is. Hex. I've seen some toxic altcoiners who love Hex. Specifically, I'm thinking of Richard Hart, the founder of that project. Anyway, my point is there are lots of toxic people in the space who might say that they're being missionaries, but go ahead and pay attention to their tone. They sound a lot more like mercenaries. Now to the point of my headline and thumbnail from Lyn Alden, one of the best analysts you will find in the broader space. Bitcoiners are a polarizing group among broader Twitter, but it's actually a great set of people for the most part when you get to know the ecosystem and the various individuals, in my opinion. Disagreeable in aggregate, perhaps, but principled. Meanwhile, I see this happening. We looked at a very similar chart yesterday. This is the number of Bitcoin addresses with equal to or less or greater than 0.01 Bitcoin. That's the orange line. And it is shooting up. While the price is down, plebs are buying. Shrimp, not whales. The whales are buying too, but the shrimp are buying, which is interesting. Continuing on from Lyn Alden, there are loud, uninformed social media individuals and periodic waves of groupthink, but that happens in any space. Plenty of individuals push back on that when it happens. Truth is, there is no Bitcoin community. It's a group of many very different subcultures. There are OG cypherpunks, developers, libertarians, conservatives, progressives, entrepreneurs, VCs, miners, self-styled plebs, analysts, scam breakers, etc. Some of the biggest forces in Bitcoin aren't even active on Twitter or are anonymous. So this, I think, is true. And we want this, right? We want there to be a lot of different personalities here. If this is going to become the world's money, then we need big tent Bitcoin. It can't just be the narrow subset of beliefs and peoples and personalities that adhere to your strict set of dogmas, doctrines. This is why I changed my bio on Twitter to say big tent Bitcoiner, maximal-ish, right? It's what Lyn Alden is talking about here. She says there are lots of people who love Bitcoin and are into it and want it to succeed. They come from all walks of life. This is true. This is true. Only within the Bitcoin community have I seen anarchist conservatives aligned carnivores be close friends with progressive libertarian vegans in person and rush to get a taxi together in the rain. There's something unique here, something powerful. Modern tribes are flexible. I think it's worth pointing out that Alden is talking about tribes, modern tribes, right? Anarchist conservative aligned carnivores and progressive libertarian vegans. Who else is thinking about tribes? Balaji Srinivasan, right? It's not incidental. It's not superficial that there are these tribes forming. This is actually really important, and I think is going to have a huge impact on how society plays moving forward. Institutions are losing power. They're losing their grip on reality. They're losing their ability to govern and guide. People are forming their own groups online based on values and lifestyles, and those, I think, as Balaji Srinivasan has written to his book, are going to become the foundation for future societies, the network state. Moving on. When meeting them in person, you encounter various subworlds. That which is on Twitter is the visible part of the iceberg, while the biggest part is underwater. Some of the biggest movers in the space barely have time for Twitter. There's almost no inverse correlation. I personally invest in multiple asset classes, domestic stocks, foreign stocks, currencies, bonds, commodities, precious metals, real estate, etc. I focus on the long run, but I'm aware of cycles and agnostic about asset classes, not tied to anything in particular in terms of price. She would be decried and chased out of the space if certain people had their way. Like, you mean you're not 100% Bitcoin? You're not a real Bitcoiner. Her whole point is there are lots of people who like Bitcoin, and you should be very glad about that. You should be happy that there are all walks of life that are drawn to this. I agree wholeheartedly. Okay, Big Tent Bitcoiner, as I believe we all should be. Let's try to welcome people. Let's try to be real missionaries, in the words of Michael Saylor. There it is. Bitcoin is for missionaries. Crypto is for mercenaries. Moving on. From Dennis Porter, breaking, members of Congress write letter to the EPA over concerns with Bitcoin mining's energy consumption. As I have said many times, this will be an attack vector. This will be the area that people come after Bitcoin because it's an easy narrative. It's a simple narrative. It's one that resonates broadly with society, right? You can spin it out. It's a soundbite. Bitcoin is bad for the environment, obviously. Can't you tell? It uses so much energy. This completely lacks context. It fails to compare it to anything else, including the legacy institutions and the legacy systems that it's replacing. But whatever, it's easy to say. You can say it in a soundbite on the 6 p.m. news. Who signed this? Well, I'll give you one guess. No surprise. Elizabeth Warren, first name on the list. Also Sheldon Whitehouse, United States Senator. Edward J. Markey, Jeffrey A. Merkley, Rashida Tlaib, and Jared Huffman. Gotta say, I don't know much about all those others, but I am not a fan of this saying that we need to look into Bitcoin's energy usage. This is just an attack vector for centralized authorities to try to lock down Bitcoin, shut it down, change it, put it under their thumb. We need to actively be fighting this with everything we've got. Because, as it turns out, they'll subsidize something like solar panels, but solar panels are not like the cleanest energy around. They're not the safest energy. They're not the most efficient energy. And guess what? Efficiency matters. Go ahead and ask Europe, who's in the midst of an energy crisis, whether efficiency matters. People are going to freeze to death this winter because they don't have energy. They can't pay for it. It got too expensive. Efficiency matters. This is something that I think, at least in the American political left, a lot of people don't get. They don't understand that efficiency, ruthless business efficiency, absolutely matters and makes a difference to people's life in a positive way. If you can be highly efficient, you can help more people with your products and services. From Brian Gitt, whom I'm not previously acquainted with, he says, I tweet about energy investing and decision making. Here's my investment thesis. Brian says, solar panels are made from toxic materials. Only 10% are recycled. Governments fear groundwater contamination from hundreds of millions of solar panels dumped in landfills. Solar panels last a long time. If you put them on your roof, they'll be there for 10 to 20 years, which is great. I'm not anti-solar panel. But to say that this is green, but Bitcoin is not, is ridiculous. Bitcoin is agnostic about where it gets its energy from. If we really cared about green, we'd be going nuclear. Everyone would be going nuclear. In fact, we'd be going new nuclear. We'd be using thorium reactors instead of plutonium reactors that were developed during the Cold War when we needed nuclear weapons. It was a political decision to go with plutonium rather than other nuclear elements. Now there's so much regulatory red tape that it's going to be very difficult for somebody to really develop a new kind of reactor. And nuclear just has a nuclear name, right? It's a pejorative. Went nuclear. We just think about it as a bombs and explosions. Even though number by number, it's the safest and most efficient energy production method we have. Yikes, guys. Big yikes. The Ethereum devs had a call yesterday confirming the perpetual date for the merge. What a weird name. The perpetual date for the merge. Breaking it down, the conference call saw core Ethereum developer Tim Bako, who runs core protocol meetings, propose September 19th as the tentative target date for the merger. The proposed target date didn't face any objection from the core developers. However, later, Ethereum developer superfizz.eth tweeted about the roadmap to the merger and also cleared that the proposed target date should be seen as a roadmap rather than a hard deadline. They've pushed this back so many times, I would not be surprised at all. Even though this is 2 months out, I wouldn't be surprised if they pushed it out again, right? The closer we get to that date and the closer their projections are, the less likely it is to push it out, but they've pushed it out so many times. Wouldn't shock me at all. I'm not going to hold my breath. I will wait and see. And you know what? Let's end on a funny note. Have you guys heard of goldbacks? A goldback is a currency-like note with actual gold infused into it. I heard of these a couple of years ago when they came out. It's actually a group in Utah that is producing these with some kind of proprietary technology. It's very exact amounts of gold. And I was at the farmer's market on Saturday, and a guy there had goldbacks. He didn't even have them on display for purchase. I asked what forms of payment he took, and he said, well, I'll take, cash, credit, debit, Venmo. I'll take goldbacks if you got them. Now, most people probably wouldn't know what he meant when he said goldbacks, but I was previously aware because I already had one. So I bought several more. It's funny, there were several videos that came out on YouTube like that day or the next day saying that gold was a really terrible investment. Good thing I'm not buying it as money per se. There are several businesses around where I live that will actually take this as payment. Unfortunately, there's no one-to-one with the dollar. With the dollar inflating, the goldback, as you can see on screen, is worth roughly $3.77. So you have to do a conversion at anytime you want to use these. And I got to tell you, the number of people actually using these as currency to buy goods and services is probably vanishingly low. They've got a whole bunch of different denominations, and each one has their own designs, and they've made different ones for different states. So if you get one from New Hampshire or Nevada or Utah, they're going to have a different design. Kind of fun. Not necessarily endorsing this for anything other than how fun and interesting it is. Let's go back to our start. Ooh, Doctor Strange, Bitcoin hardliner wizard. What do we got, team? Let's look at the results. You know, with a little help, this looks like a great profile photo. Maybe I need to change my Twitter photo to be this. You need to Photoshop an actual Doctor Strange right there and Photoshop an actual Bitcoin thing right there. But like I said, I think these AI artists are a great tool for actual human artists because they get the idea across, but they definitely don't get 100% there. Well, that's my live stream for the day. I am way past the normal time that I do these. It's 5:16. I need to head home. And, comment from M.R. Lieberman. But they will argue that you can use proof of stake. Absolutely, talking about regulators. They will argue that you can use proof of stake because proof of stake is basically recreating our existing system. As I understand it, proof of stake is just the powerful get more powerful. The powerful can control the reins, right? They decide how the system works. And if you don't have enough, then you can do delegated proof of stake, which really just means you're going to give your money to somebody else and let them make the decisions on your behalf. Tell me how that's different than anything else we do right now. Not a big fan of proof of stake. Turns out I'm a big proof of work guy. That was the innovation of Bitcoin. That was one of the core things that it did. It synthesized many different innovations, but that was absolutely an essential one. And I think we should stick to it. We have to stick to it. We got to get good at defending that one. All right, team, I'm checking out. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye.